to you. So the kind of basics are the same, but we'll have some specific kind of things that we'll look at that are specific to Hartlepool. But those are all the learning outcomes, which I'll send the PowerPoint out so you can have a look. So when we have the training days, there's 6 training days, we do 2 days together. We try and do 2 consecutive days because it keeps you in training mode. The days are always kind of a full day. I have a bit of a rule, I'm pretty sure I told Jayne, but I'm saying it now, that I ask if anyone's on a training day that they do not go back to work after a training day. Purely because there's a lot, it's slightly different doing qualification to having a training day, because a lot of what we'll talk about you'll then need to go away and write about. So I want people to digest it, I want people to reflect on it, I want people to think about it or go away and write some notes. If you're going straight from the training room straight into a home visit, that gets lost and it's really difficult to hang on to. So I don't mind if people kind of then go away and go for a walk and kind of digest it. There'll be days that we might finish at kind of 3:30 and we'll just have people want to stay for another hour and we go through some criteria, we have little working groups, we plan their assignments there. So if we can kind of, if we can honour that, it will make a difference. But I can't, did I mention that to you? So they've used different range, so the 6 days, do lots of group work, direct presentations, there's a PowerPoint every time. But we do, I'll try and kind of mix it up a lot, because everyone has different kind of learning styles, so we do lots of kind of paired discussions, document reflections. We've built, we had to kind of, we were a bit worried about this in the first place, we built called a workbook. So yours hasn't, this is kind of, my last group's got big coffee stains on it. So yours has just been produced. And the reason we did things around worksheets was because people tend to have a range of notepads and they write things on the notepad going, oh, okay, I've got to write an assignment on that, I'm going to make myself some notes. And then when you go away to write your assignment, the notes make no sense to you at all. So we developed these type of worksheets which are specific to the criteria you've got to write about. And you'll do these in groups, and so they make sense. And you can also submit the worksheets as part of your evidence. So it just has all your notes in one handy place, and everything will be in this workbook. Where you meet your criteria, you'll have all your assignment templates, what we're going to talk about, what we're going to meet by kind of assignments, everything will be in your workbook. So yours has been produced, and those will be, so when you turn up on your first day, you'll have kind of a bag with your professional guidance, your workbook, and a pen, I think. It's all high tech. And that, so that you'll have everything you need. And if you can stick to your workbook rather than having lots of worksheets, it will become a kind of godsend. A week later when you go, I can't even remember being in that room and then what she talked about. Just a week has kind of gone ahead of you. So we do lots of individual documented reflections. We do a bit of role playing. Because it meets criteria, but we don't do, I tend to do stuff like a bit like Dragon's Den-ish. So if I'm asking you to justify something, then I'm asking you to kind of justify it as a small group. I never put anyone in a position. We've got people who are really against role play, then you just become the directors and tell the rest of them what to do. So you state your plan quite early, but your role plays will then meet your criteria, because I'll observe you being able to do it, and you meet your criteria. So there's a range of different ways. What you will find is you'll do very little having a piece of flip chart in front of you and doing a list, because I don't think it kind of helps. So rather than doing a list about what the kind of the blocks to trust, I'm more likely to say, draw me a picture and use no words at all, because you have to think about it much more. So we won't ever do, probably, might do a couple of lists, but they'll probably be the only lists that we do. So we'll look at video clips. We've got video clips of kind of real cases, we've got family case studies, we do lots of modelling. There is an element of e-learning that we give you access to. You don't have to do the e-learning to meet the qualification. The reason we built a couple of e-learning packages in was because when we look at, one of the areas is tools to work with families. So we look at things like, we do science and safety, so we look at things like genograms and timelines and eco-maps, but there's such a short amount of time really spent on it. When we had workers who had never done a genogram in their life and hadn't even heard of the word genogram, it didn't feel that we were giving them enough time to have a play around with it. So you will all have access at the end of the programme. I'm not going to overload you with more stuff unless you ask for early access to it. At the end of the programme, you'll have access to some e-learning programmes, one of those being Tools to Work with Families. You can just access in your own time or in your work time, but it'll just go over and they'll be active for 12 months. You can extend it if you want to. Just so if there's things that we've touched on, you think, actually I need to go over it again, I can't remember what those symbols are, I can't remember what it is, so that'll just give you an opportunity to act on. There's one on reflective practice, there's one on motivation interview, and there's one on Tools to Work with Families. So you'll get access to those at the end. The course doesn't require you to have to do them, we just add them in as an extra interface, so you're not penalised if you don't look at them. So the assessment side of it. So there's a range of assessment methods. This looks like a big list. So to meet the qualification, every learner will be asked to do 2 written assignments and 1 case study. And I say a minimum 1 case study because some people meet other criteria by doing a case study, which I'll going to talk to you about later on. You'll do 3 full reflective accounts on each of those units. So you'll do a reflective account on kind of engagement and communication, 1 on tools and 1 on independence and self-reliance. You'll do a reflective learning log, which we'll all do together as we go through the programme. Everyone will have an observation. So they'll go in kind of 2 halves really. You'll have a one-to-one with me, and that's just kind of, we'll sit down, there'll be certain elements that we will meet just by talking. It's your opportunity. We put those as late as we can within the process, because the reason I do that is because by then I've had all of the written work in, and if there's some stuff that hasn't quite met the criteria, we'll mop it up while you're talking to me. So I'll go, tell me about your role. So what happens if this happens? We'll just mop it up just by sitting and having a chat over coffee. We'll mop up anything that's not there and I'll write it on my reports. And there'll also be, and we'll have some observation around everyone will have a kind of project to do. So it'll be in small groups based on what your role is. I'll give you something to test out with families, and you'll come back as a small group, and you'll kind of, so some people might develop a PowerPoint based on something recent that they've learned, and you'd explain it to a new member of staff. Some people might test a new tool out with a family, and they'll come back as a group and they'll go, actually this worked, we've developed this, we think this will be better, or I had a recent group develop a leaflet for families around family meetings because there wasn't one within their service. So you'll be a project. Don't set those until we start the training days because I don't know what people's roles are. And also I'd like some feedback from learners that actually this would be useful for us to have. So if there's a project which is something that is useful for your service, then that can be your project. All of this meets the criteria. Managers will provide you with a witness testimony. So there are five areas we ask managers to kind of reflect on. And we get some where they give us 2 lines where yes, this learner can keep kind of really good personal professional boundaries. Usually those are the managers who have about 5 members of staff who are on the course. But there's also, it's an opportunity, once managers look at what's included in the witness testimony, it's an opportunity if you haven't seen that learner within a practice recently, can you kind of arrange an observed visit so you can actually kind of give a bit more depth to it, give a bit of feedback to the learner. We have learners who ask family members to provide them with a witness testimony. So you know, from Amy went out and got kind of a range of witness testimony. She got 1 from her manager, she got 1 from a previous manager, 1 from a head teacher, and about 4 from families. It all backs up your criteria. She had families who were saying actually she works with me really fairly, she was really clear. So when you look at the areas that are asked for on witness testimony, we expect 1 from a manager, but the rest can be from a range of people. I like them if you can get them from family members. You might want to reword them, but if we could get some feedback from families, it would be really nice. Direct assessor discussion, that's completed when we have our one-to-one. You have written questions, which are short, sharp answers to be developed, and those are often the things when we have, they'll all be in the back of your workbooks when you get your workbooks. The short answers, these are often the things, if we have a day which finishes about 3:30, this will be when you get a group of 4 people going, just sit for half hour together and knock these out and just kind of answer them and do them. You still there? So usually when we start talking about the work, that people kind of start, So the stuff that's important, it's 6 full training days. It is really important if you can kind of dedicate to the 6 days. There is so much content covered in the 6 days, for one thing, but there's also so much group work that you will do, that you will fill in this workbook that is your criteria, that is really hard to catch up on. If you're going to miss a day, get someone who's got neat writing to take notes for you. I can always tell you the chapter in here, but it's not the same. Because at the end of each 2 days we do an assignment plan. So we go through, we unpick it to death about kind of what is the assignment asking you to do. So how would we analyse that? How would we talk about that? And we unpick it, we go through it kind of really well, and it's really useful if you're then going to go away and write about it to be part of that. So there will be individual assessment time for everybody. It's regular one-to-one contact support. Now you can have as much support as you want. Everyone thinks, I can't ask for help because nobody else is asking. I had a learner who used to ring me every Monday evening, mainly to have a moan about how she couldn't do it, but we got her through it. So you can have as much support as you want to have. You will get your professional guidance, the full learner assessment guide. There's a brand new fancy electronic system that everything is going to be uploaded to and on. So there'll be lots of support around that. So we do there's lots of phone calls, but people quite like Skype calls. So if you have Skype, because then I can share systems. So especially if it's about the system, I don't understand how to upload that onto the system, we can have a Skype call where I can share my screen. If it all becomes too much, email it to me and I'll upload it for you. Nothing's completely undoable. We'll kind of manage to kind of do whatever we need to do. Oh, I got backwards. You haven't got to do this twice, don't worry. So the support that you'll have kind of an assessment of your individual needs and learning style. So if people have individual needs to include teenage development and kind of early intervention. And so we put a lot of that in, but then the learners weren't being able to write about it, so it wasn't part of their course, and it just became, so we approached Sitting Guilds and said, can we change it, can we adapt it? And they didn't want to, so we created our own, which we created as a basis that it can be much, much more flexible. So it's much more used, so we still get a lot of kind of targeted trauma families workers. There are still kind of targeted trauma families teams out there, especially in the London boroughs who do this course. We still keep it around antisocial behaviour. We see a lot of we have police do the course, we have lots of youth workers who do the course where their focus is around antisocial behaviour and criminality. But we built something that can be for anyone who's kind of working that whole family as a core part of their role, or those other really important kind of services who are part of the team around the family. So it can be completely adaptable, which is what we're aiming at. So the roles that have had it, I put this on there because I thought it might be quite useful. So the roles that have done this training recently, or since we've been doing it, it's only been out a couple of years, are going from Department for Work and Pensions workers who don't work for family, even if they thought they did when they started, they don't. But we kind of, alongside kind of sergeants, we had 2 custody sergeants in the recent one, alongside early help kind of senior lead in Holton, who was the commissioner of early help. So none of those people did the same portfolios. So we can adapt your role. You'll have the same assignments because your core qualities are going to be the same if you're working with families and individuals around vulnerability, but your portfolios and the work I give you, the projects I give you will be completely different. So there's a range of kind of, if anyone's got a role that isn't up there, then don't panic about that. I quite like to build my role up. So if you're a vet, then we can add it in, I'll make it work. Some of the areas that have had it so far, there'll be a kind of the London boroughs, just to give you a taste. You probably think it makes no difference to us kind of here in Hartlepool as to whether you've gone to different areas. What's useful is when we're looking at the projects and I'm asking you to evaluate different kind of tools that might work, it's really useful when you can look at what Sefton have done. So you've got areas like Cheshire who have something for everything. They have a form and a process. You can guarantee that any slight thing a family might need, they'll give you a form for it. So we can look at what's useful is actually how useful is that form. or actually do we need the skills behind it? So what's useful is we can bring that, what other areas are doing, you can evaluate it alongside, would that be useful for Hartlepool? Or do we have something that kind of works much better? You will also be added to this list now. So feedback kind of tells it is, we built the course around understanding skills, ability and confidence. What's been really, not surprising, but been really valuable to me is the biggest thing that's come out of the recent evaluations, kind of the last 100 or so learners, above anything else, it's confidence that people are saying has come about. It is just enabled them to feel much more confident in the role they've done. A lot of people talk about, I remembered the stuff that I forgot I knew. It's taken me back to basics. I'm happy to kind of try something different. We know resilience rates within kind of family work and work and vulnerability are higher than they have ever been. I think latest statistics were kind of 47% of our workforce within children, families, work and health are out at the moment around kind of resilience and health and kind of just being overwhelmed. So it is, if we can put something in that makes people feel more confident and feel more able to do the job, then that just opens you up to kind of new learning much, much more. So we do a lot around reflection. There's a big element of the course about reflecting, about we do new knowledge and we think about actually is that going to make a difference? Is that going to help those families when I walk in the door? What difference does it make? Why do we need to do that? Why do we need to do that? To know that. And those are all really personal. So you can do reflections on, yeah, it looked good, but I don't need to know it, I don't need to retain it. It's not going to be useful for me and the families I see. As long as you justify that, that's a whole bit of learning in itself. You don't have to sit and nod and agree and kind of write your assignments in that way. Drinking the spell. So it is a recognised kind of qualification. It's kind of recognised under Qual. It is level 4, which kind of sits on the, it's just above an A level, just below a degree, sits on that level. It's 15 credits. It takes approximately 6 months to complete. They break it down now, qualifications, in what they call total qualification time. Because this is 15 credits, they set it as about 150 hours. They recommend it's going to take you 53 hours over the 6 months to complete the course. That's a complete guide. We kind of give them some information, and that's what they break it down at. So just your 6 training days alone are 56 hours. So it's really hard when people go, how long is it going to take me? Because some people can kind of sit at a computer, work solidly for an hour and write an assignment. Other people will do 3 hours, look at it, a page before they kind of then do a few little things and then go off and play Candy Crush while I'm sitting there doing something else and kind of, and so it's really hard to kind of notice how long it's going to take you. But 153 hours is what we kind of pin down to. So you're looking at really a couple of hours a week. A lot of this time, so you'll have, when we go through what the assessment process is, you'll have individual time with me, you'll have group time, you'll have kind of lots of other things, you'll have time with your manager, there'll be lots of other things that build into those hours. So we'll break down exactly kind of what's expected. People get worried about when you start talking about it sits just under a degree. So it is kind of an academic course, but you don't have to write academically. It's vocational, kind of mostly, so what I want to hear, I'm not worried about whether you can do Harvard referencing. What I'm more interested in is you're talking about yourself. So there will be some theory that we will look at. Everyone will get a professional guidance book. They were trying to move away into kind of all this new times of not having anything paper. I'm still one of these people who have a paper diary. So I argue you should still have a book because I quite like a book. So all of your knowledge that we're going to cover is in this book. This isn't your answers, but all of the knowledge is in here. So for you just to regurgitate this into an assignment doesn't tell me that you can make a difference to your families in Hartlepool. But it does meet your knowledge criteria. So I want you to kind of give you the knowledge and then give you a go. If we're going to do this because this is the difference that I think it will make, or actually this is where I struggle putting this into place because of something kind of that I believe in. I have a strong value system about work, or I have a strong... So that's the kind of difference between it being vocational. So the amount of... I have probably a good 70% of the people who complete this course do this is their only reference that they use. So your referencing is, in brackets, professional guidance, page 32. Beware of copy and pasting because I wrote it. So I know it quite well. I am now updating it just for you, clearly because we called Right Honourable Tim Wright and Tom. But there's some he hasn't noticed. There's some other things that I'm very conscious I'm on video. There's some other things that we've kind of updated in here around brain development and things as well. So you will have a guide. If you want to go away and do hours and hours of research, absolutely, then knock it out. It's absolutely fine as long as you reference that and I can check it. But you don't need to. It will be in here. The knowledge that we cover will be in here or on the information that I send you. Is everyone still with me so far? So I'll stop doing that and you'll be with me even more, not showing myself how much bit of it. So there's 3 units that we cover as part of the programme. I don't know if people had an opportunity to look at these. We had some briefing information, have you seen anything? So there's 3 units. The first unit is around engagement and communication, which is our biggest unit that we look at, which is everything around safe relationship building, communication, boundaries, attachment, anything that would kind of link into kind of work with families. That's your core stuff. It's the same, all of those roles that we saw, engagement and communication is the same for all of you. So it would be exactly the same whatever role you hold. And then there's a unit on assessment tools and planning. So it is around kind of whole family assessments, different tools that you can use to assess family need, individual need, how useful they are. So we'll do some kind of looking at the different tools. You'll test some out, you'll go away and you'll test them out with families. And then family plans, how we can work with multi-agency in a multi-agency environment. We'll do a little bit around kind of chairing multi-agency meetings and kind of have different characters within the room, how you can kind of work that. And then our last unit is around supporting family members and individuals towards independence and self-reliance. So we'll be looking about how you end interventions, how we start thinking about kind of education and employment, and what tools do you have for those things. When people get very wary about, oh, my families aren't ready for employment, we're not saying that you have to kind of frog march them down to the job centre, but actually how are they becoming much more resilient? How is everything that you put in being able to kind of stay with them? And throughout all of this, we'll also be asking you to reflect on each of those units. So how skilled do you feel around your engagement and communication? How skilled do you feel around assessment, tools and planning? What's working well? What there needs to be more of? And around the kind of building independence and self-reliance, it's about how you can support families to be independent and self-reliant, but also how independent and self-reliant do you feel? So what's working well within your organisation? What do you kind of need more of? What would be most useful? If you were in charge of Hartlepool, what would you say? Everyone says they give themselves a pay rise, so I expect to see that in your work. It's a bit of a standard. So there's a number of learning outcomes that come behind these, which I won't go through all of them, but you can see kind of how we start to build it up, build the programme up to you. So the kind of basics are the same, but we'll have some specific kind of things that we'll look at that are specific to Hartlepool. So those are all the learning outcomes, which I'll send the PowerPoint out so you can have a look. So when we have the training days, there's 6 training days, we do 2 days together. We try and do 2 consecutive days because it keeps you in training mode. The days are always kind of a full day. I have a bit of a rule that I'm pretty sure I told Jayne, but I'm saying it now, that I ask if anyone's on a training day that they do not go back to work after a training day. Purely because there's a lot, it's slightly different doing qualification to having a training day, because a lot of what we'll talk about you'll then need to go away and write about. So I want people to digest it, I want people to reflect on it, I want people to think about it or go away and write some notes. If you're going straight from the training room straight into a home visit, that gets lost and it's really difficult to hang on to. So I don't mind if people kind of then go away and go for a walk and kind of digest it. There'll be days that we might finish at kind of 3:30 and we'll just have people want to stay for another hour and we go through some criteria, we have little working groups to plan their assignments there. So if we can if we can honour that, it will make a difference. But I can't, did I mention that to you? So they'll use different range. So the 6 days, do lots of group work, direct presentations. There's a PowerPoint every time. But I'll try and kind of mix it up a lot because everyone has different kind of learning styles. So we do lots of kind of paired discussions, document reflections. We had to kind of, we were a bit worried about this in the first place. We called a workbook. So yours hasn't, this is kind of, my last group's got big coffee stains on it. So yours has just been produced. And the reason we did things around worksheets was because people tend to have a range of notepads And they write things on the notepad going, okay, I've got to write an assignment on that. I'm going to make myself some notes. And then when you go away to write your assignment, the notes make no sense to you at all. So we developed these type of worksheets which are specific to the criteria you've got to write about. And you'll do these in groups, and so they make sense. And you can also submit the worksheets as part of your evidence. So it just has all your notes in one handy place. And everything will be in this workbook. Where you meet your criteria, you'll have all your assignment templates, what we're going to talk about, what we're going to meet by kind of assignments, everything will be in your workbook. So yours has been produced, and those will be, so when you turn up on your first day, you'll have kind of a bag with your professional guidance, your workbook, and a pen, I think. It's all high tech. And that, so that you'll have everything you need. And if you can stick to your workbook rather than having lots of worksheets, it will become a kind of godsend. A week later when you go, I can't even remember being in that room, let alone what she talked about. Just is a week has kind of gone ahead of you. So we do lots of individual documented reflections. We do a bit of role playing. Because it meets criteria, but we don't do, I tend to do stuff like a bit like Dragon's Den-ish. So if I'm asking you to justify something, then I'm asking you to kind of justify it as a small group. I never put anyone in a position. We've got people who are really against role play, then you just become the directors and tell the rest of them what to do. So you state your plan quite early, but your role plays will then meet your criteria, because I'll observe you being able to do it, and you make your criteria. So there's a range of different ways. What you will find is you'll do very little having a piece of flip chart in front of you and doing a list. Because I don't think it kind of helps. So rather than doing a list about what the kind of the blocks to trust, I'm more likely to say, draw me a picture and use no words at all. Because you have to think about it much more. So we won't ever do, probably, might do a couple of lists, but they'll probably be the only lists that we do. So we'll look at video clips. We've got video clips of kind of real cases, we've got family case studies, we do lots of modelling. There is an element of e-learning that we give you access to. You don't have to do the e-learning to meet the qualification. The reason we built a couple of e-learning packages in was because when we look at, one of the areas is tools to work with families. So we look at things like, we do science and safety, so we look at things like genograms and timelines and eco-maps, but there's such a short amount of time really spent on it. When we had workers who had never done a genogram in their life and hadn't even heard of the word genogram, it didn't feel that we were giving them enough time to have a play around with it. So you will all have access at the end of the programme. I'm not going to overload you with more stuff unless you ask for early access to it. At the end of the programme you'll have access to some e-learning programmes, one of those being tools to work with families. You can just access in your own time or in your work time, but it'll just go over and they'll be active for 12 months. You can extend it if you want to. Just so if there's things that we've touched on, you think, actually I need to go over it again. I can't remember what those symbols are. I can't remember what it is, so that'll just give you an opportunity to access them. There's one on reflective practice, there's one on motivation interview, and there's one on tools to work with families. So you'll get access to those at the end. The course doesn't require you to have to do them. We just add them in as an extra interface. So you're not penalised if you don't look at them. So the assessment side of it. So there's a range of assessment methods. This looks like a big list. So to meet the qualification, every learner will be asked to do 2 written assignments and 1 case study. And I say a minimum 1 case study because some people meet other criteria by doing a case study, which I'll kind of talk to you about later on. You'll do 3 full reflective accounts on each of those units. So you'll do a reflective account on kind of engagement and communication, 1 on tools and 1 on independence and self-reliance. You'll do a reflective learning log, which we'll all do together as we go through the programme. Everyone will have an observation. So they'll go in kind of 2 halves really. You'll have a one-to-one with me, and that's just kind of, we'll sit down, there'll be certain elements that we will meet just by talking. It's your opportunity. We put those as late as we can within the process, because the reason I do that is because by then I've had all of your written work in, and if there's some stuff that hasn't quite met the criteria, we'll mop it up while you're talking to me. So I'll go, tell me about your role. So what happens if this happens? We'll just mop it up just by sitting and having a chat over coffee. We'll mop up anything that's not there and I'll write it on my reports. And there'll also be, and we'll have some observation around everyone will have a kind of project to do. So it'll be in small groups based on what your role is. I'll give you something to test out with families and you'll come back as a small group and you'll kind of, so some people might develop a PowerPoint based on something recent that they've learned and you would explain it to a new member of staff. Some people might test a new tool out with a family and they'll come back as a group and they'll go, actually this worked, we've developed this, we think this will be better, or this is I had a recent group develop a leaflet for families around family meetings because there wasn't one within their service. So you'll be a project. Don't set those until we start the training days because I don't know what people's roles are. And also I'd like some feedback from learners that actually this would be useful for us to have. So if there's a project which is something that is useful for your service, then that can be your project. All of this meets the criteria. Managers will provide you with a witness testimony. So there are five areas we ask managers to kind of reflect on. And we get some where they give us 2 lines where yes, this learner can keep kind of really good personal professional boundaries. Usually those are the managers who have about 5 members of staff who are on the course. But there's also, it's an opportunity, once managers look at what's included in the witness testimony, it's an opportunity if you haven't seen that learner within a practice recently, can you kind of arrange an observed visit so you can actually kind of give a bit more depth to it, a bit of feedback to the learner. We have learners who ask family members to provide them with a witness testimony. So you know, it's from Amy's. Amy went out and got kind of a range of witness testimonies. She got 1 from her manager, she got 1 from a previous manager, 1 from a head teacher, and about 4 from families. It all backs up your criteria. She had families who were saying actually she works with me really fairly, she was really clear. So when you look at the areas that are asked for on your witness testimony, we expect 1 from a manager, but the rest can be from a range of people. I like them if you can get them from family members. You might want to reword them, but if we could get some feedback from families, it would be really nice. Direct assessor discussion, that's completed when we have our one-to-one. You have written questions, which are short, sharp answers that can be developed. And those are often the things when we have, they'll all be in the back of your workbooks when you get your workbooks. The short answers, these are often the things, if we have a day which finishes about 3:30, this will be when you get a group of 4 people going, just sit for half hour together and knock these out and just kind of answer them and do them. You still there? So usually when we start talking about the work, that people kind of start So the stuff that's important, it's 6 full training days. It is really important if you can kind of dedicate to the 6 days. There is so much content covered in the 6 days, for one thing, but there's also so much group work that you will do, that you will fill in this workbook that is your criteria, that is really hard to catch up on. If you're going to miss a day, get someone who's got neat writing to take notes for you. I can always tell you the chapter in here, but it's not the same. Because at the end of each 2 days, we do an assignment plan. So we go through, we unpick it to death about kind of what is the assignment asking you to do. So how would we analyse that? How would we talk about that? And we unpick it, we go through it kind of really well, and it's really useful if you're going to go away and write about it to be part of that. So there will be individual assessment time for everybody. It's regular one-to-one contact support. Now you can have as much support as you want. Everyone thinks, I can't ask for help because nobody else is asking. I had a learner who used to ring me every Monday evening. Maybe to have a moan about how she couldn't do it, but we got through it. So you can have as much support as you want to have. You will get your professional guidance, the full learner assessment guide. There's a brand new fancy electronic system that everything is going to be uploaded to and on. So there'll be lots of support around that. So we do there's lots of phone calls, but people quite like Skype calls. So if you have Skype, because then I can share systems. So especially if it's about the system, I don't understand how to upload that onto the system. We can have a Skype call where I can share my screen. If it all becomes too much, email it to me and I'll upload it for you. Nothing's completely undoable. We'll kind of manage to kind of do whatever we need to do. Oh, I got backwards. You haven't got to do this twice, don't worry. So the support that you'll get, you'll have kind of an assessment of your individual needs and learning styles. So if people have individual needs, we'll account for them. The things we can't not do, everyone has to do the set criteria around the 2 assignments, the reflective logs and the case study. Everything else is up for discussion about kind of, I don't want to be videoed, I don't want to do that presentation. So some people go, you have to do a presentation, these are the criteria, how are we going to meet it? And if you want to do an extra case study, if you want to do more written work, you can do more written work, that's absolutely fine. If you say, actually, I'm going to ask my manager to come and see me do something, can they write me a account? As long as your manager is happy to do that, then that's fine. So everything is kind of, as long as we meet the criteria, it can be tailored to you. So there is group activity sheets which are linked to the assessment, ongoing email support. You can have as much telephone or Skype support as you need, but it has to be learner-led. So as an assessor, I'm not allowed to give anybody kind of anything more than somebody else. So you have to be asking me for it. So if you want to kind of talk to me every week, that is absolutely fine. I can't be saying, I want to talk to you every week because I want to get you through, I'm not worried about the rest of them. Because that would be seen as me being favouritism over one person. So as long as you kind of put it in, then you can have as much support as you want. My last group, someone was really upset by kind of someone going, oh yeah, I did all those with Clare at the end of day 4. They go, oh, well, we didn't get a chance to do it. So well, I just stayed back and said, can you help me kind of do these? So it's just that kind of thing of, yeah, so ask for it. Don't be scared not to ask for it. Just pin me down and say, I need some help. You can do a lot of this together. So a lot of your project work, a lot of your planning for your assignments, you can do together. If you choose to do a joint kind of case study, because it's a case you're working on together, as long as that's agreed first hand, so that they look exactly the same, because they have to go through protocols and policy. So as long as you've told me that's a joint piece of work we're doing, so we're going to do that piece of work together. So you can start buddy up systems and all of those things to get through. So it takes 6 months. We used to do the old course over a year, over 12 months, and we hummed and hawed about this. Should we do this for 6 months? Did it feel too kind of quick? I have to say the 6 months works, because the longer it goes, after the first 3 months of your training days, you'll have 2 days a month training. The next 3 months is the most difficult time for me to get work out of people, because you're not coming into the room. It's always that thing, if someone hasn't put in an assignment, so after day 2 we set an assignment that's going to be completed before you come and see me on day 3, which is about 4 weeks. Plenty of time to do it, but you'll always get the people who send it to you at midnight the day before they're going to see you, and then they walk in at 5:30 going, didn't meet, have you out it? Oh, it's this week. I haven't even looked at it. So there'll be those people who kind of work up to the wire, which is fine. If that's how you work, that's absolutely fine. Just give me time to read it before you ask me. And it's always because people know they're going to see your face, so they'll try and get the work done. So after the 3 months, when you're not seeing my face, it kind of goes out the window a little bit. And if you extend that over the 6 months, it's really hard to catch up again. So you'll have kind of a 3 months taught sessions. You'll then have kind of a 3 month period where I'll leave you alone for a month and let you have Christmas and New Year, as we've got Christmassy people in, and then we'll start kind of to build in your individual kind of work. So attendance all 6 days is really recommended, unless kind of there is something. If we have people miss, I'm more than happy to kind of have conversations with people, catch you up and those things, but it is much harder to catch up. It's just much more useful for you if you can attend all days. So some of the frequently asked questions is about what does it mean at level 4. It is a foundation degree. I've had quite a few of the learners who are in London Borough Tower Hamlets, had 4 recent learners who have gone into master's degrees and asked for references from the vocational. So they're now seeing vocational qualifications. Not that I'm telling you need to leave working with Hartlepool and New York to do a master's, but they've had quite a lot of people, they've started recognising the vocational qualifications to academic study. So it is slightly above A levels at foundation degree. It's vocational. So I'm much more interested in that you can develop the skills. So when you work, if anyone's done a level 3 qualification before, it was lots of things about explain how to. So with level 4, it's much more about analyse. You're analysing it, you're evaluating, and you're justifying. So everyone gets a part of the information you'll get is you'll get a hints and tips sheet. And so I give that to everybody, and I kind of always have this thing of, is that a little bit patronising because it tells you what analysing means, it tells you what explain means. But when you're having all of this stuff go in, it just, you forget. So you'll get all that information. And that's usually it's the analyse that people miss. So we go through that when we do kind of a discussion. If you send me an assignment and it doesn't meet, it isn't just sent back to you, kind of it's not good enough. It's kind of, I'll give you exactly where it has met, and I'll tell you what it needs a bit more of to meet. So that'll either be in it, I'll ask you a couple of questions, or I'll be, can you just expand on that point? If you send it back to me again, and it still doesn't meet, we don't play ping pong with it. We log it as it is, and we'll go, okay, we're going to discuss that on your professional discussion. Or I know, because you've talked about that in the training room, and we'll lock at that professionally. We don't do this kind of keep going back, it's still not good enough, it's still not good enough. There is no fail in this qualification. There is just a pass. The only way you can fail is if you stop sending me work. I can't pass if I don't have the work in there. But it's impossible for me to fail you if you are giving me work. We'll find other ways to meet it. So there is no distinction either, there is just a pass rate, which people get a bit upset about because they quite like a distinction. Having said that, the qualification board, the awarding body, will often pick out 2 or 3 learners when they kind of do their external evaluation or verification that they recommend be nominated for their coursework. So we often have some of those, which is useful. So other things people get worried about is that they haven't studied for years. So some people have done no study since they were at school. It's within our interest to help them pass. We've put over 200 learners through this, I think we're up to about 270 now. We haven't had a single person who hasn't passed or a single person who's dropped out. Don't see that as a challenge of being first, yes. I don't let you drop out easily. As Jayne said once you're registered, Hartlepool are paying for you anyway. So because I have got workers that we're taking monthly payments from because their organisation will only pay half or pay nothing. I do feel I owe it to Hartlepool to try and not let you drop out easily, and I'll go, let's meet on a Sunday and go through it, tell me what you know. So there's lots of ways. The support is there, provided with lots of constructive developmental feedback. You haven't got to worry if your spelling's not very good. You haven't got to worry if you haven't done any much academically. If you are doing this job and you are able to write reports on the job that you are doing, you're able to feed back in a way you can read this qualification. We'll make this adaptations for you as much as we can. So other things, the biggest thing for me really is about the personal commitment to doing the course. So think about your motivation, your skills, your role. I can help you as much as I'm able to, but there will be Thursday nights when you'll be rather watching these vendors than writing about the National Occupation Standards of Work with Parents. And you will want to throw it out the window. And that's really hard to do if you don't want to do the course. So there will be times when you won't want to do it, but you know you're going to see my face in a week's time and you don't want the walk of shame. You go, oh, sorry, I mentioned it. So it's your responsibility to produce the evidence, to meet the assessment deadlines. I will always set deadlines, because everyone else around you will have deadlines set, so if I don't set them, I don't stand a chance of getting the work. Everything can be shifted. We know that life gets in the way. The only thing, if you are one of those people who works right up to the deadline and think, I'll just let it go, and the week before I'll send you everything, just give me a heads up that that's what you're going to do, just in case I decide to go on holiday and I can't mark anything. So if you are one of those people, just let me know so that I can book that in. And I stop becoming like your nan, dropping you, going, are you alright? Do you need anything? Because I will start praising you. If you want me to just leave you alone, you'll get it. Just wait for it until the week before. I'll leave you alone. But it's a dicey game to play just in case I go off sick and can't mark anything. So training days, just in case, I've put these on just in case people are thinking, because they're not sure whether if you've got a big holiday route. So our training days are set. So those are all set as start and end of October. Oh, getting training on Halloween, that's good. I get away from trick-or-treaters. My husband will be thrilled. And then we'll finish in January, so we have nothing in December. Do October, November, January. And then your one-to-one visits will start, we'll book those in March, April. And your portfolio hand-in date set at the moment is for the 30th of April. Which usually then takes around a month to get the external valuation finished, verification finished, kind of April. It's quite nice for me. I feel like I have like 500 children. I always want to put a cornflake kind of pretend hat on and everything, just celebrate with you. So those are the timings. The training will be at the Innovation Centre. Questions now? Do you want to do So I'll leave these out so people can come and have kind of a read and sort of see what the types of assignments you're being asked to be doing. Is there anything?
Could we just say a little bit about the evaluation? I said at the beginning, really, this is an investment from the Hartlepool Partnership, and it does sit within an evaluation framework, which is like an added dimension, really, to what Claire's been talking about. And the Health Relationship Partnership feeds into the Children's Strategic Partnership and all that stuff. And we would feedback outcomes from the evaluation through to the Strategic Partnership, because we kind of think this course is really important, and we feel like, you know, practitioners are really sort of important to delivery of outcomes, obviously. So we want the Strategic Partnership to buy into this. This first course that we're running from October, hopefully before half term, will hopefully be the start of perhaps other cohorts being able to take advantage. So it's really important for us to be able to demonstrate the outcomes that we're going to hopefully facilitate by equipping practitioners with that confidence and the skills. So we'll feedback the outcomes to these groups and to our funders, because we're funded by Comic Relief, Big Lottery and Esme Fairbairn, and they ask us, well, if you're investing 22,500, which is that's what we're investing, by the way, in this programme, then what is that going to? So, you know, it is about sort of like just having that kind of dialogue about the investment and what we've got for that. And we use the word pioneers, really. We're wanting that first, you know, you as a first cohort to be really instrumental in helping to shape sort of some of the workforce development programmes going forward, really, for our wider early help workforce. So, I'm trying to click in the wrong place. Oh,
so now it's supposed to be feel better.
Exactly the same thing. So we're asking you to think about, if you sign up for a place in the course and complete an expression of interest, what we're asking of you in terms of the evaluation, this is in addition to the assessment, is that Katie, our researcher, I think many of you have met Katie before, but it would be to have a chat with Katie as part of her data collection, really, so that we can ask you, you know, what do you want to get out of the course, where do you anticipate yourself being at the end of it, so that we can find out, we want to really track the impact on you as practitioners. And then halfway through the process, a short phone call, because we're aware of kind of time commitment, so Katie would sort of negotiate with you at an appropriate time to have a short phone call to find out how you're finding it, what's been of interest. So it's separate, again, to the assessment of the work. And then you would allow us to have some examples of the assessments that you do. And that we'd also, this is the final point is really important, because we're really interested in the family experience. So how have the families that you've worked with experienced you as a practitioner? Now some of that will obviously might be collected through the kind of witness statement, but we would really be interested, and this is kind of a requirement, is to get to ask for consent from families that you're working with for Katie to talk with them. This is after your intervention, so that we can get a sense of how did they experience that intervention. It's something that and I know some people here will know that Katie did something called a family experience study with around 11 families year before last, and that was, you know, again an opportunity to talk to families about their experience of having received a service and what that was like for them. So we would ask for every participant on the training to ask for consent for us to be able to talk to at least one family that you have worked with. Anything I've missed out? No. And also, we would also ask for, we will never ask for any of the reflective log or any of the work that you would do with Clare as part of your learning, but Clare will be interviewed as part of the research to kind of give us some themes of just general themes that are emerging from the learner's reflective log, so that again we can incorporate that into the evaluation. So it is very separate in terms of that confidential relationship between trainer and learner, but we would, you know, try and get some of that data from Clare. Does that sound okay? Any questions about that? I don't know the details of the research, but you know, we do have someone here that does. All of you who have come here today have heard the presentation, but you may have noticed that we've had Tom here filming the presentation, because there are people who are really keen to be interested, who are interested in the training but couldn't come today. So we're going to make a YouTube video available of that, as well as the presentation. So if there's anybody in your workplace that you think, oh, they didn't get here, you know, there's an opportunity to sort of see the presentation and the slides as well. So what we'll do is we'll have a conversation about the October date.
Yes.
And then when we get the change of the October date, we'll put that on the refreshed presentation and send that out, so that you've got that. Does that sound okay? 18 places. There are, yeah, I'm glad you reminded me of that. There are 18 places available. So there are 18 places that we think there's probably going to be more demand than there are places. So what I said earlier is that Richard, myself, Katie and colleague Lee People from HVC, who've been part of commissioning the training, we will look to make sure the first cohort is a little bit balanced. So if you do put in an expression of interest, it will give us a sense of the demand, because we're also very interested in looking to see when can we run cohort 2. So, you know, it's not a kind of a, you know, we want 18 places of people who are, you know, committed to all the things that Clare talked about. But if for whatever reason we have more demand than there are places, we will definitely hold people to say what we're interested in running another group next year. So it's not kind of a once-only opportunity. Because our aim is to make sure that this is something that is available to people and workers in Hartlepool going forward. So that's part of our why we're so keen to evaluate the impact, because I think many of us know, I've certainly experienced training courses where I've gone on training and then I don't really know whether it's made any difference whatsoever really to people I've worked with. So this is really an opportunity to kind of say, we've put this much investment in, but this is actually what we've put out of it. Really.
Is funding in place for the second cohort?
We're working on that in terms of a model, and some of the things that we're talking about is that there may well be opportunities for those who are employed by the council to do it through an apprenticeship route, which is paid for by central government. So that isn't possible for us in this cohort, but certainly post-January that might be available. And the Healthy Relationship Partnership would then look to how we could make sure that people who aren't able to access that can be funded. So that's our kind of thinking at the moment, really. We want it to be open to everybody who's in the early help workforce, whether or not they work for HBC, who are more likely to be able to be funded than others. So we're trying to sort of make it more equitable, really. Any other? I'm sure there are questions probably in the detail of the content that you might want to talk to Clare about. So maybe it would be an idea, unless I'm getting a sense nobody's burning with the question, I could go and put the kettle on, because we're here till 3 o'clock. People who want to get a drink can have it, or an opportunity to talk to Katie about the research, or talk to Clare about the content and training. If you feel you've had enough and you've got enough detail, then there are forms here for you to pick up and take away.
Now we said we're going to try and change the first 2 dates to the 23rd and 24th, which will be the Tuesday, Wednesday before, but it all depends on venue.
We'll find a venue.
Okay.
We'll go to
do
the
that
dates.
then. So do you want to go with those dates then?
Yeah. So I don't know if that helps certainly helps with the school-based people, so apologies for that. I'm glad that we've been able to do that. I don't know about the colleague here who's already got a holiday book, that might not help, but that October date will be the week before half term.